Okay, I believe that we are live. Gentlemen, welcome to week 2. I am I'm very interested in how the first week had gone. So, let's go ahead and recap really quick how week 1 went. Give a little intro to week 2 and then we'll get into the power rankings. Okay. So to start, the Bond County Coonhounds put up a measly 84.8 points in a loss to the Dallas Dragons, who put the hurting on 157.8. The Cali Pigs, one could argue, loses in an upset to the Bear Boobs. The Tennessee Colonels in an absolute shootout against the Creatures. The St. Louis Looters sneak one out in Huntsville, and then the Clark County Crusaders fall to the Shadow Troop. Again, another matchup that I think people were expecting to go a different way. Now, we've already technically started week 2. I know we're basically at halftime of the Thursday night game. And how it's looking heading into week 2, the Cali Pigs are being hosted by the Bond County Coonhounds. The Bond County Coonhounds now own their own first overall or their first round pick. So there is reason for the Coonhounds to lose this matchup. However, I am being told by sources that they would like to win this week because they believe they'll still finish with the worst record in the league. So they wouldn't mind winning one and ruining somebody's day. The Bear Boobs have a very tough matchup against the Beecher Creatures, but we now know that the Beecher Creatures are nothing to, or the Boobs are nothing to sleep on. So potentially trouble if Rex starts out 0-2. Stories developing. The Dallas Dragons and the Huntsville Hitmen, what I believe to be the matchup of the week here, because the Hitmen, who I believe to be one of the better teams in the league, 0-1, but then they get an absolute dogfight in week 2 against the Dallas Dragons. This one could be very, very interesting. The Tennessee Colonels look to start out a very hot start to the season. I think they should take care of business against the Troop. The St. Louis Looters and the Clark County Crusaders. This one, again, could come up very, very interesting. The reason for that, I think that Torbeck is dealing with some injuries. Dylan is also dealing with a Kittle who is injured. His team is still very depleted without Ayuk or Godwin. However, if he sneaks one out here, it could loom large towards the end of the season. Jordan Love having a pretty good game so far. I think that he could probably eclipse 20 points by the end of the game. That would be pretty big for the Crusaders. Okay. With that being said, the standings for week 1 on the screen, obviously the Colonels in at the top of the East and the Dragons at the top of the West. The West almost going undefeated this past week. Pretty incredible because historically the East has run the Gentlemen's Football Association. Obviously, Dragon won last year, but in terms of overall performance, the East has historically performed better. So let's get into the power rankings. Coming in at number 10, it's no secret the Bond County Coonhounds are at number 10. The team is a shell of itself in terms of what they started out the season with. They've added some draft capital coming in for next year. They hold 3 first-round picks and their own second. So that's going to be large for the future in Bond County. There's not much else to say about this team. There's not a lot to write home about. I do think that it is still a team that could like crazily put up a 115 or 120 week and then catch somebody sleeping, but who knows? At number 9, I think it was already said in the Discord chat, but I have the Shadow Troop at number 9. Very good week 1. Very, very good week 1. However, I am not a believer in this lineup long term. The depth I'm not 100% sold on. And I think also I really think that the depth is what is holding this team back. I think it's a decent team, but week to week, I just don't think you see a consistent output like they had in week 1. Time will tell us, but I have been on the fraud watch of the Shadow Troop before, and I have not been wrong yet. Will I be proven wrong this year? Maybe, but not yet. Okay. At number 8, it pains me to put him here, but I struggle to put him any higher. I think that he will finish larger than 8th or higher than 8th towards the end of the year. But as of right now, he's in the I need to see something category, and that's the Cali Pigs. Okay. The Cali Pigs, this lineup is better than 8. But I need to see it to be able to justify it. Added Justin Herbert. I think that's going to be massive this year. I am big on the Herboat train for this season. I think that this team could sneak into the playoffs, but again, I got to be able to see it. At number 7, a guy that is already working to prove me wrong from the preseason power rankings, arguably could have been put higher, but I've got the Bear Boobs at 7. I almost put this team higher. I struggled between 6 and 7. I could flip-flop the 2. And the reason I love this team, 1, huge Baker Mayfield guy. Big Baker Mayfield guy. Derrick Henry he's got curb appeal, right? The name hits really hard. But we have also seen in the past where he'll disappear for 2 to 4 weeks and then come back strong at the end of the season. So you can never count him out. Chase Brown is going to be massive for him. I'm not a believer in DJ Moore at all. I am a believer in Mike Evans. And the depth of the team, I like Jameson Williams. Yes. So also part of the reason why he's at 7. At number 6, we have the Clark County Crusaders. The Clark County Crusaders, 0-1, yes, but this team, I think, has a lot to look forward to this season. Do I think they are the best team? No, not by a long shot. But do I think that they will finish above 500? Yes. And that might be enough to – I think that the middle of the pack is going to be – the last few playoff teams are probably going to be decided by a game or scores, most likely. So I've got the Clark County Crusaders. I think he's got bigger hitters and more consistent players than Sam, and that's why I just struggled to put him at 7 compared to Sam. And while I don't want to automatically look forward to putting like him having Ayuk or Godwin eventually. That does add to his depth later on down the line. And I think that this team is going to be, it's going to be gritty. It's going to be gritty. And I think that the Crusaders are going to be better than they were in week 1. At number 5, a team that I think actually, while he's 1-0, I think performed worse than what he's actually capable of as well. I think, yeah, and this usually happens with week 1. Offenses are, not in sync and they're not scoring as high. So Torbeck is at 5. I definitely cannot put him higher. I will never probably take Torbeck out of the playoffs, out of just like his history tells us this team is never going to look good on paper, and it's going to just find a way to perform enough to where it's going to make its way into the playoffs. But this team actually does have some depth, and I think has some significant pieces. Added AJ Brown and added Tyreek Hill. I think that this team certainly got better with that trade by a long shot, and I think that makes him more competitive in terms of having a more solidified top end, where he has previously kind of relied on middle of the road guys to be super consistent, which makes a lot of sense because Torbeck is a huge numbers guy in terms of what's my average output going to be and what can I rely on. A man that lives in the safe space and the safe bubble of fantasy football, doesn't really venture out too much, doesn't really go out on a limb, doesn't trust his gut instincts. But I think this is probably the most bold Torbeck has been since the league's origin. And so, do we see a Torbeck championship this year? I think out of all of the teams, this is probably my sleeper championship team outside of like the heavy hitters up top. This is going to be my pick. Okay. At number 4, a guy who lost in week 1, but again suffered those week 1 lulls of teams not performing super well, teams not in sync. Miami is a huge question mark, and I had Devon Achane circled as a potential league winner, but holy cow, if Miami is as bad as they were in week 1, don't overreact yet, but it might be time to pull the panic button out because you've got so much talent here, but this guy was your guy. Michael Holmes is at 4. Ladd McConkey is incredible. Breece Hall last week had 15.5. I would not have had Breece Hall eclipsing 12 points in the previous week. Caleb Williams puts up 24.2 points. This man was moving last week. Incredible signs for this team that was probably going to rely on Joe Burrow to throw a whole heck of a lot of touchdowns. But if you've got that kind of output from Caleb Williams on a week-to-week basis with the way that he was moving outside the pocket, this team can be scary. And which is why that they're still at 4. I believe in this team, and I think you should too. At number 3, a guy that is also 0-1, the Beecher Creatures. This team is very good, right? It is built, and it is also built for the long haul. It's not bulletproof, but this team has some depth. Okay. And this team is, it also doesn't jump out at you, but if the signs in San Francisco from Pearsall to continue to get 7+ targets a game is a really, really good sign. Drake London, 15 targets. Atlanta offense might be worth buying into. And, I know it was a mistake for me to accidentally bid on Ray McCloud, but I picked the guy up just because the man got 5 targets and the Atlanta offense is actually not that bad and they are moving the football. So him buying in on Atlanta this year, it could prove to be nice. How many Penix score last week? 23.9. I'm telling you, the Dirty Birds might have something this year, and Rex is obviously going to benefit from it. At number 2, the reigning champion of the Gentlemen's Football Association he's here, and if it wasn't for how number 1 performed, I would have probably continued to put him at number 1 just because not more or less the team, not less the team, but more the manager, because it takes some ball knowledge throughout the season to be able to put together a team, and the Dragons don't miss. Dragon has proven he's going to have a seat at the table, and he's probably going to make the playoffs again, and he's could be looking for a repeat. Okay, that's definitely not out of the question for the Dallas Dragons, and I will appease the man, although I don't want to. At number 1, the Tennessee Colonels, absolutely massive week last week. The Josh Allen Lamar Jackson combo is here, and it is terrifying. And Josh Jacobs is producing as we speak. CeeDee Lamb might be the only person in Dallas to catch the football, and he's also going to benefit from that. The Tennessee Colonels are pretty dang good. Okay. Predictions for week 2. I think the Cali Pigs win. I think that the Bear Boobs fall to the Beecher Creatures, and they both end up at 1-1. I think that the Huntsville Hitmen get back to even. I think the Tennessee Colonels take care of business. And I think that the Clark County Crusaders also get to 1-1. If my predictions are correct, that would leave us at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams at 1-1 starting week 3. I think it's going to be incredible. I hope that's what happens. Sitting here at the bottom of the leaderboard, I'm praying for chaos. I appreciate you all for tuning in, and I will see you next week.